Hello. All right. I'm Caitlin Kleinpace. I'm one of the elders here at City North, and I'm a mom of, depending on how you count, either 4 or 0, or 6, or 10, or 17 children, because I'm a foster mom. I do not have any biological children, but currently we have 4 children who are amazing and who live with us, who we get to be a part of raising. They are kindergarten boy, 2 third-grade girls, and a high school boy. And you will see them around here. Terry is a little flash of light that you'll see running around. But because of foster care stuff, I can't put pictures up to show you our family. We're speaking about the complications of Mother's Day. Last night, I was up rather late with one of our girls as she was crying because she misses her mom. And I'm also her mom. She calls me mama, but it's hard. And when I was asked to speak today for Mother's Day, I was thinking, God, what is it that you have taught me through being a mom? What are the things that are different or special that I've learned from being a mom? And I was thinking about it. I was like, it's not like the lessons that he's taught me in these past 10 years have been any different. It's everything turned up 1,000%. Everything is so much harder and so much more important. And I think about, why is that? Well, because we've been given this responsibility as parents to take this tiny little helpless human and in just a few years have them ready to be a functional adult in the world. And that is terrifying and huge, and there are an overwhelming number of things that you need to teach a child to get them to be an adult and functional. And some days we get to see these big successes. It's the day that your kid takes their first steps or the day that they graduate from high school. Don't make me cry. A couple weeks ago, I was sitting down and just doing a puzzle. I love doing puzzles. And over the course of the day, I'd sit down for a little bit and I'd work on it, and then I'd go do other things and come back. And all of my kids came in at some point and just sat down with me, and some of them did the puzzle with me, which is its own excitement, doing a puzzle with a kindergartner. We did find all the pieces eventually. But they all came in and they sat down. They just wanted to talk to me about their day. And at the end of the day, I was like, that was so huge. It was a huge success for me to know that my kids just wanted to talk to me. Because I'm going to be honest, being a parent of a teenager, that doesn't always happen. It really doesn't. And we have those days that are like these successes, but that's not every day. Some days it feels like the fails overwhelm us. Whether it's the email from the teacher titled "Problem with Rocks," true story, or "Truth or Dare." We have excitement at our house. Whether it's the day a couple weeks ago when we got to dinner time and one of my kids came to me and said, "Mom, I'm really hungry." And I said, "Well, why are you hungry? What about dinner?" And he said, "Well, I didn't get dinner." And I was like, "What do you mean? I know we had appointments and you had track and there was yep, everyone else ate dinner and you didn't." Sorry about that. You want some? It's in the fridge. Or, those days when I'm so frustrated I start yelling at my kid because they once again left their dishes on the table, and how many times do I have to tell you that when you're done eating, just put them in the sink? And then they say, "Well, those were the other kids' dishes, not mine. I'm like, cool, well, I just yelled at you for 5 minutes about that one. And then we lay down at night and we just go over in our head, over and over and over, all the failures and all the opportunities for good that we had that we didn't do, and the things that we could have taught our child that we didn't, and it can become overwhelming. There's a reason why mom guilt is a common phrase in our culture, right? Because there are so many opportunities to fail. And it can be hard to even know what's the goal, what's the standard? Because there's what I was raised with, and then there's what my friends say, and then there's what that podcast I was listening to said, and that book I read, and as a foster parent, I have to do 45 to 60 hours of training every 2 years. So now there's all those trainings that I'm going to, and what they're telling me I need to do. And I tried to implement that, and then I got tired, and then all that went out the window, and I did what I always do. And what am I even supposed to be aiming for? There are days when I go to bed and I don't know if I can keep going the next day. Because I don't know. It's so hard. And some of those things are real things that we do wrong. The day that the times when I yell at my kid instead of listening to them. That's a real problem. And then there are other times when it's like, was that actually a problem, or was that just like life? I don't know. My kid didn't eat dinner that night. Well, he eventually got food, right? But we just live with this guilt. And it's not just moms. It's all of us. But I think moms live with a particular burden. And when we have this burden of guilt, we have to figure out, how am I going to deal with it? It's really common to try to make it go away. We might go through denial, like, well, it wasn't that bad, right? It could have been worse. Rationalizing, well, at least I didn't do, that. Blame shifting, well, if my kid hadn't done this, then I wouldn't have done that, right? Sometimes we get into comparison. Well, yeah, my kid's not perfect, but have you seen that person over there? Have you seen their kid? At least my kid's not that bad. And a lot of times we get into this, I just have to try harder. I feel guilty about the ways that I have failed, and I just have to try harder. I just have to do better. And then we get to the teenage years, when a lot of the parents of teenagers I talk to are at the point where they're like, I just give up. I tried. I don't know what to do. I've tried so hard. And I'm just tired. And I'm done. And I don't know. They're just going to have to figure it out. As a Christian, sometimes we think, well, maybe I should turn to God with this weight, with this burden, with this difficulty. And so we go to the Bible and we look for a verse, and we might find a verse like this one. There we go. It'll be up here. Galatians 6:9, it says, let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we'll reap a harvest if we do not give up. Okay, but here's the problem. When you're already weary, when you're already tired, when you've already been trying, and I look at this, and I go, I'm trying to do good. And now you're telling me that I have another problem because there's another standard that I have to meet where I'm not allowed to be tired. In addition, and then we continue reading, and it piles on a little more, and it says, therefore, as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially to those who belong to the family of believers. And so now we're tired, and we're trying to escape the guilt of all the ways that we've failed. And we look at the Bible and it says, well, don't be tired. And by the way, expand who you're doing good to everyone you know, everyone you meet, to all people. And it feels like that is not helpful. But this is Galatians chapter 6. It's the last chapter in a letter that is written by Paul and his team to the church in Galatia. And we are jumping in at the end of his thought, at the end of the arc of what he is saying. And when we go back and we look at the context, there is actually hope here. So let's take a look back. And I'm going to tell you, Paul is a brilliant writer. He is, absolutely brilliant. I highly recommend taking the time to study the book of Galatians on your own in depth. We do not have time for that today. We're going to read a few verses, and I'm going to summarize a lot of the rest. But brilliant book, love it. Wonderful way of addressing our guilt and our feelings of failure and the ways that we choose to handle them. So let's jump in. Let's go ahead and jump in to Galatians chapter 2, verse 19. It says, "For through the law I died to the law, so that I might live for God." All right, so the law was the guide that God gave to the Jewish people so that they would come to know him. And it did that by showing them their need for a savior. It was never given to them so that they could perfectly perform everything and earn their way to God. It was given to them to show their need. But the church in Galatia, which was started by Paul, was not using the law in that way. This is a church that was partially Jewish, partially non-Jewish background believers. And when Paul came and he spoke to them, he told them, there's good news. There's what we call the gospel. And that is how God handles our failure. Because we're all going to fail. And God knows that. And God knows every way that we're ever going to fail. And he knows that we are not capable of changing ourselves, of fixing ourselves, of making ourselves better. And so he has a solution. His solution is that he came and he lived a life here on earth to show us what it looks like to follow him. And then he died to take the punishment for everything that we have done wrong. All the times that we have hurt someone, all the times that we have chosen selfishness over love. He died, and now he's offering that to us as a gift. And when Paul was in Galatia and he was teaching this, there were so many people who said, yes, I want that gift. I know that I have tried to follow the law, or I've tried to be a good person, and I just keep seeing all the ways I fail. And so they asked God to forgive them, and they started that relationship with God. But then Paul moved on to go to another city. And some people came and joined the church in Galatia, and they were like, well, yeah, I mean, forgiveness is great, but you also got to do all the good things too. You got to follow the rules too. And in fact, actually, you know what? I am following the rules, and that means I'm a better Christian than that person over there because I follow the law, and they don't. So I'm better than they are. And in the Galatian church, it was becoming an issue that people were using the things that they were doing. They were using the law and the good law. I mean, following the law was not a bad thing, but it was not meant to show how good we were. It was meant to show us our need. And they were using that to prove that they were good people, to make themselves look better than others. They're using it to make their guilt go away and to make themselves feel better about themselves. And we might ask, like, well, why is it a problem to feel better about ourselves? Well, let's think about what's the long-term effect. If I'm in denial, or if I'm rationalizing away my guilt, what that leads to is being a person who cannot see my own problems. If I'm blame shifting, if I'm blaming other people for the things I do wrong, that leads to control and manipulation of other people, because now if it's their fault that I'm doing things wrong, I have to change what they do to fix me. If we are comparing ourselves to make ourselves feel better than others, that leads to becoming judgmental, where I have to find all the things that are wrong with you so that I can feel better about myself. And you think about the reputation of the Christian church in a lot of non-Christian circles: judgmental, controlling, manipulative, can't see our own problems. How we handle our guilt is not just a mom problem. It's not just a personal problem. How we handle our guilt impacts how the world sees God. Because the message that God has for us is that He wants to deal with our guilt, and that we don't have to. And so when we try to take back being in charge of that, it changes how people see Him. When we are, yeah, that's what I thought. Okay. When we come to know God, when we ask Him to forgive us, we are starting a process where we are saying, God, I admit what I have done, that I have done things wrong. You know, we have to be able to honestly assess a situation in order to know the solution, right? We can't hide from the things we've done wrong. We have to turn and we have to face them and we have to admit it. And that process doesn't stop the first time that we have asked God to forgive us. We are forgiven. But as we follow God through our lives, we continue to fail. We continue to develop guilt, and we continue to have to face it. But earlier we were talking about, there are a lot of different standards. How do I know if I've done something right or wrong? Is it based on what the book I read, the podcast, my friends, my family? What the Bible says is that what God cares about most is how we treat other people. It says, let us do good to all people, right? Elsewhere it says, love your neighbor as yourself. We're told that the whole law can be summed up in 2 commands: love God and love your neighbor. When we admit that we have a problem loving people, when we admit that we have a problem, we open a door for God to be able to step in and solve that problem. We can't solve it, but God can. So let's continue. Oh, real quick. Through the law, I died to the law so that I might live for God. That can be a little confusing. Through the law is by following the law, by trying to follow the law. I died to the law. I realized that I couldn't follow it, right? So that I might live for God. So I have the choice, instead of focusing on following the rules, to focus on knowing God. And then he continues. He says, I've been crucified with Christ, and I no longer live, but Christ lives in me. The life I now live in the body, I live by faith in the Son of God who loved me and gave himself for me. I do not set aside the grace of God. For if righteousness could be gained through the law, Christ died for nothing. He says, so here, grace can be translated, or it means a free, undeserved gift. It's the gift that we receive when we have done nothing to deserve it. And righteousness is living in right relationships with God, with other people. So this last sentence, I do not set aside the free, undeserved gift that God is offering. Because if I could live in right relationships with God and other people by obeying the law, by obeying the rules, by doing the right things, then Christ didn't need to die for me. When we trust God to save us, our first step is admitting that we need a problem, and our second is asking him to solve the problem. We're not just saying, please take away the punishment for the things I've done wrong. We're also trusting him to heal the people that we've hurt, because he knows what's going on in their life way better than we do. He knows what they need more than we do. We're trusting him to change us, to help us to grow, to become more, to grow into the people that he designed us to be, that he created us to be. And we are trusting him to use us to meet the needs of other people, of the people he's put in our lives. You think about a puzzle, right? A puzzle isn't one piece. That would be a picture. A puzzle is a bunch of different pieces that go together. Parents, one of the hardest things is that we are not every piece of our kids' puzzle. I can't be everything for my kid. I'm never going to be everything for my kid. I'm going to fail. I'm going to leave holes. But God never intended us to be. He never intended us to be everything for anyone. He's putting together the puzzle in each of our lives. And he takes pieces from here and pieces from here, whether that's our parents, our friends, the people who have influenced us. And he's putting them together to make an amazing picture. But we are not every part of that for someone else, right? Does that make sense? God is putting together this picture, and we have to trust him to be the one to do that. Trusting God says, I'm going to let go of controlling. I'm going to let go of controlling. I'm going to let go of blame shifting. I'm going to let go of denying my role. I'm going to let go of rationalizing away my guilt, I can admit that I've done things wrong, and I can trust that God's going to deal with it. Trusting God to deal with our failure and our guilt frees us from the burden of dealing with that guilt. It frees us to play the role in people's lives that God has designed us to play. But there's bad theology. So we're going through Paul's argument here in his letter. We've been offered forgiveness, right? Forgiveness frees us. And then he sees a point that he's like, people are going to misunderstand this. Bad theology that comes out of, we've been offered forgiveness, we're free, so it doesn't matter what I do, and I can go do whatever I want, and I can hurt people, and it doesn't matter if I'm selfish, if I yell at my kid, if I do whatever, it doesn't matter because God's going to take care of it. And Paul's like, no, that's not how this works. So we're going to jump back to Galatians 6, just a couple verses earlier. He says, do not be deceived. God cannot be mocked. A man reaps what he sows. Whoever sows to please their flesh, from the flesh will reap destruction. Whoever sows to please the Spirit, from the Spirit will reap eternal life. This idea of sowing to the flesh versus sowing to the Spirit is the idea of, am I living my life by my own priorities and goals and my own wisdom, or am I living by God's goals, priorities, and wisdom? And Paul's saying, look, guys, God knows what's in your heart. He knows if you are coming to him and asking him to forgive you because you actually believe that you have done something wrong, or if you're just trying to get out of trouble. Okay. People who have interacted with children, you all know what this looks like, right? You got the kid who doesn't actually believe that what they did was wrong, and they say, I'm sorry, right? As opposed to the kid who really gets it, and they're like, and they'll, I'm sorry, can I help? What can I do to fix it, right? We all know what that looks like. And God knows, just as a 3-year-old is transparent to us, we are transparent to God. He knows what's in our hearts. He knows if we really believe that we need to be forgiven, that we need to be changed. Because if I really believe that I am so messed up and broken and I am hurting people left and right, that I am failing, then the logical progression is, okay, so if I'm offered a chance to grow and change, if I really believe that's a problem, then I don't want to do that anymore. I want to change. I want to grow. And so he says, listen to God. Pay attention to what he's doing. Whoever sows to please the Spirit, from the Spirit will reap eternal life. When we are living our life by God's wisdom and priorities, then we're going to reap the benefits of that. And to be clear, listening to God is not just hearing the words he says. Again, parents, you know this. When I say, my child, there are 42 socks on the floor in this house. They need to be picked up. I don't want my kid to just hear the words I'm saying and say, cool, I hear that there are 42 socks on the floor and they need to be picked up. I want them to go pick up the socks, right? Like, hearing my words means nothing if you don't do it. One of my daughter's absolute favorite phrase when I am trying to tell her something is, I know. Teenagers, I'm just saying, not a great phrase. Because the question is, if you know, then why aren't you doing it? Right? Why do I have to say it again? When we listen to God, if we are listening to God, then listening results in action. Listening is not a passive taking in information. It is an action word that results in choices and change in our lives. God has paid the price for what we have done wrong. We had a big debt, a big problem, but he has paid the price to free us from that burden. And God knows how to bring healing and life into a situation. It doesn't matter if we were the one who did something wrong, if someone else did something wrong, or if it's just a whole messed up situation and we don't know where, why, how, whatever it got that way. He knows how to bring healing and life into that situation. And he wants to use us to be his agents of change in the world. Whether that is in the life of your child, whether that's at your job, whether that's at the grocery store, he wants to use each of us to bring healing and life into this world. But to be a part of that, we have to be able to admit where we have failed. We have to face that and see it. We have to be able to, face our guilt. Trust God, sorry, here I go. Face our guilt, trust God with our guilt. And then listen to him on what does he want us to do? What steps does he want us to take? And it might be surprising sometimes. I can't tell you what step he's always going to want you to take. But now is when we come to the passage that we had at the beginning, Galatians 6, 9, and 10. He says, let us not grow weary in doing good, for at the proper time we'll reap a harvest if we do not give up. We're continuing with the sowing and reaping language, right? He's saying, look, here's the goal. The goal is that as we have opportunity, let us do good to all people, especially those who belong to the family of believers. Let us do good to all. That's the goal. But he breaks it down into steps. So let us have as we have opportunity. He's not saying, okay, go out and you are entirely responsible for doing all good to all people at all times. We are not responsible for the entire puzzle. He's saying, as you have opportunity, play your role. Look for what is it that God is asking you to do in a situation. Ask him, talk to him, get to know him better so that you can see what he is doing and how he is acting, and you can get on board with that and you can participate. As we have opportunity, take the step that God is leading us to. Listen to him. Look for what he is doing. And if we're doing that, we're going to get to see we're going to reap a harvest. We're going to get to see healing and life in the people around us. And that might be small ways. That might be the day that my kid comes and sits with me while I'm doing a puzzle, and I just get to know that they actually want to talk to me. Or it might be a big thing. It might be the high school graduation. It might be your child's wedding day. It might be, I don't know, any other really big moment. But we're going to get to see the healing and life that God wants to bring in these situations. But we can't give up. And it's not about am I tired? It's not saying don't feel tired, because we are all going to feel tired sometimes. But it's about where are we getting our energy from? Am I tired because I am trying to fix everything, because I'm trying to take on responsibility that is not mine? Am I instead of trusting God to deal with the situation, am I taking that on myself? Is that why I'm tired? I know for me it is, a lot of the time. When we're tired, it's a call to get to trust God. And so when it says, let us not grow weary, saying, turn to God and trust him. Know that he is the one who is going to direct our steps. And our job is not to do everything or be everything or succeed in every area. Our job is just to listen. What's the thing right here, right now? For me, some days that is just the moment of saying, my child, I love you. You have whined at me 96 times in 2 minutes, and I need to walk away right now. And saying it like that instead of the other ways I might want to say it. Because that is the loving thing, is to take a second and walk away and get myself under control. Talk to God, right? And sometimes it's to step into the situation and say, my child, I love you. You've whined at me 96 times in the past 2 minutes. What's going on? Are you okay? Where are you at? But it's as we listen to God that we're able to know, where is he leading? What is it that we need to do here? Okay. So moms, we have mom guilt. It's just there. There are so many things that we could do. But how we handle that, it's not whether we feel guilty, because we're going to feel guilty, we're going to fail, we're going to keep failing, we're all going to fail, and we're going to fail our kids. And I wish I had a better message, but it's just going to happen, because we're not intended to be everything. But how we handle that guilt, how we handle that failure, is going to transform how the people around us, including our children, and honestly, including us, how we all see and understand God. Do we see him as the God who has saved us and is in control and loves and is able to take care of all of us? Or are we too busy focusing on making sure that I feel good about myself, and making sure that I don't feel the guilt? When we feel guilty, we need to go to God. We need to admit our guilt. We need to trust God with that, trust that he's going to take care of it. And then we need to listen to him. What is the step that he wants us to take?